Mosaic, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
Dear viewers, these pictures come to you live from Fallujah, where U.S. planes and tanks have begun a new raid in the area. According to these pictures, there are violent clashes taking place between Iraqi fighters and American forces. Our correspondent just informed us that the explosions were intense and could be heard from far away. These clashes began 2 hours ago and quickly developed into an air raid in the region by U.S. warplanes. Okay, the Americans are saying that the fighters inside the city are not Iraqis, that they are a small group, and that they started breaking their commitment to the ceasefire. What have you discovered about Iraqi opinions in this neighborhood, in the area of Golan, among the families and the rest of the residents living there? What are their opinions of the violent clashes that are taking place in the city?
The opinions of the families and residents in the city, in the Jolan specifically, and Al-Fallujah generally, can be described in 3 points. The first point is what you talked about earlier, is the hope for renewed calm and peace inside Al-Fallujah and to return the city to the way it was before these clashes happened. Second, they say that the American forces are the ones that violated the ceasefire. They said this clearly. They said that the United States forces are not using force accurately. As I said, they are using force for the simplest things, even on suspicion, even if they are not sure. The third point is that the people of Fallujah, especially the older ones, said the violations of the ceasefire would happen, but they tried to minimize them because they wanted to spare the lives of the people in Fallujah, because they did not have sufficient power to resist these lethal weapons. In any case, they really wanted to fulfill their part of the ceasefire they signed.
U.S. occupation forces arrived on the outskirts of the Iraqi holy city of Najaf to replace Spanish troops who withdrew from their bases to their main headquarters in Diwaniyah neighborhood. And U.S. occupation forces, meanwhile, claim to have killed 43 Mahdi army members in the holy city of Najaf Monday night after fighting broke out between Sayyid Muqtada Sadr supporters and U.S. troops at the entrance to the southern city of Kufa.
Spanish radio announced Tuesday that the 1,300 Spanish forces withdrew from the holy city of Najaf Tuesday morning to their main headquarters in the Diwaniyah neighborhood. A Spanish military spokesman told the radio station that the withdrawal went just as planned without any security problems. Meanwhile, American occupation forces arrived Monday to the outskirts of the city to replace the withdrawing forces. But overnight clashes erupted near the northern entrance of Kufa, south of the holy city, and U.S. occupation forces claimed that they had killed some 43 fighters from Sayyid Muqtada al-Sadr's Mahdi army in those clashes. Sayyid al-Sadr's spokesman Sheikh Qais al-Khazali said that the clashes were a provocation, but added that the red lines had still not yet been crossed, adding that entering Najaf means to pour scorn of the Muslim holy places, whether they are Sunni or Shiite Muslims, and that his forces are ready, well organized and coordinated. It was the first time that U.S. occupation forces entered Najaf to secure the withdrawing of Spanish forces. However, a U.S. military spokesman ruled out that this step was a prelude for a military action against Sayyid al-Sadr's supporters. But U.S. occupation officials' statements reflect the clear outcome of not reaching a final solution over the ground control of the holy city. Monitors are expecting that fierce fightings will erupt in the Holy City if the Americans insist on entering it, as it seems that these occupying forces suffer from a complete unawareness of the value of the sacred sites for the Iraqi people.
One U.S. occupation soldier was killed in the western Iraqi town of Fallujah Monday as clashes erupted despite a ceasefire agreement was reached. 8 more Iraqis were killed as the U.S. military was using heavy weapons and air support that destroyed many mosques under the pretext of housing fighters and weapons.
Fallujah's second ceasefire was breached again hours after U.S. occupation forces announced that they will stick to the truce until Tuesday. Renewed clashes reigned in the besieged city streets, where one occupation soldier was killed along with 8 other Iraqi people. The American forces bombarded the city with air-to-surface missiles and pounded the city's poor Golan neighborhood with many missiles that killed and injured many Iraqis in their homes. Explosions could be heard in the city along with the sound of mortars and heavy machine guns. A company of U.S. Marines also attempted to occupy 2 houses, which they claim were being used as fighting positions against them. Occupation forces also claimed that mosques were being used to house fighters and weapons, so they destroyed many of them. Further to the north, 2 Iraqi civilians were killed and 5 others were injured when a mortar shell targeted the Kirkuk Police Academy. U.S. forces said they found some 13 roadside bombs in the city and destroyed them.
U.S. Secretary of State Colin Powell said on Monday that the still undefined government, due to take power in Iraq on July 1st, would have to give back some of its sovereignty to U.S.-led military forces. Powell added the United States would take a little time to see if joint U.S.-Iraqi patrols could work in Fallujah before deciding whether to take military action there. He hoped that a new UN Security Council resolution over Iraq would encourage new nations to send military forces into the country after Spain and other countries decided to withdraw from Iraq. Iraq's U.S.-picked governing council members have approved a new flag for the country, changing the colors and introducing the symbols of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Some Iraqis said the new design was the real model because it represented the whole spectrum of Iraqi society. Meanwhile, former Iraq consultation began Tuesday as a prelude for the formation of an interim Iraqi government when power is transferred to Iraqis on the 30th of June. The Governing Council announced that 3 sessions of consultations would be held on 3 consecutive days between council members and Iraqi parties' representatives for that purpose. Nearly 50 Filipino civilians who said they were tricked by a labor recruiter into working in Iraq have quit their jobs and returned to the Philippines. Filipino Executive Director of the Office for Migrant Workers said the 46 workers were brought home from the northern Iraqi city of Mosul after they complained to the Department of Foreign Affairs about their working conditions. Note that the Philippines has 51 soldiers and policemen in Iraq. British Prime Minister Tony Blair was Tuesday pondering how best to respond to a withering and virtually unprecedented condemnation of his policies in Iraq and the wider Middle East by 52 former diplomats. The diplomats said the catalyst for action had been the seeming acquiescence of Blair to U.S. President George W. Bush's backing for a unilateral Middle East plan instigated by the Israeli government.
British Prime Minister Tony Blair received a slap in the face when 52 senior British diplomats signed a letter harshly criticizing his policy in the Middle East. They said Blair should stop backing the Bush administration doomed policies in Iraq and the Middle East if he could not influence them. They attacked as one-sided and illegal the Israeli decision backed by Bush to retain some Jewish settlements in the West Bank, warning this would cost yet more lives, and they condemned Blair for supporting a move that critics say will scupper the international roadmap for an Israeli-Palestinian accord.
People with a very wide experience of the Middle East who remain in contact with the Middle East are hearing on all sides how these policies are going down badly with the people they are meant to be helping.
The diplomats had equally strong words about the US and British roles in the occupation of Iraq. They charged, quote, "The conduct of the war in Iraq has made it clear that there was no effective plan for the post-Saddam Hussein settlement," adding to describe the resistance as led by terrorist fanatics and foreigners is neither convincing nor helpful.
It says a lot about the strength of feeling that so many retired diplomats have felt forced to speak out. And the reason why they've done so is they are people experienced with authority. They know the damage we're doing to ourselves, not just in the region, but around the world.
The signatories made clear feelings of worry and despair prompted them to take this unprecedented move for the foreign policy establishment. BBC said the views expressed in the letter were widely felt by officials in the Foreign Office, but not shared by Blair or his Foreign Minister Jack Straw. The deeply unwelcome intervention for the Prime Minister came only hours after his government sought to impose a semblance of normality on the situation in occupied Iraq by naming Britain's first ambassador to Baghdad since the ousting of Saddam Hussein.
Jordanian security officials said the country has foiled an Al-Qaeda bomb plot in the capital against the Prime Minister's office, intelligence headquarters, and the U.S. Embassy. The Jordanian TV said some 80,000 people could have been killed and aired on Monday what it said were confessions by captured militants tied to Al-Qaeda.
Jordanians were stunned on Monday when the state television aired what it said were confessions by captured militants tied to Al-Qaeda, who said they had planned to launch deadly chemical attacks in Oman. The suspects in the video were linked to a purported conspiracy that officials announced 2 weeks ago had been foiled. Officials said they had arrested 6 suspects and killed 4 in 2 raids in late March and early April. The commentator said the plotters' aim was to target the Prime Minister's office, intelligence headquarters and the U.S. Embassy, and the alleged Jordanian ringleader Azmi al-Jayusi appears saying he was given orders by Abu Mus'ab al-Zarqawi, the man accused by Washington of being a close associate of Al-Qaeda chief Osama bin Laden.
I took courses for Abu Mus'ab al-Zarqawi in explosives and poisons to a high level.